Kia ora everybody, and welcome back. In this video, I'm going to introduce to you Terra Invicta, but first I just wanted to quickly highlight this. I've already made a video about this beautiful looking game called Falling Frontier out of the same publishing studio that's making Terra Invicta. That's the reason why I've included this beautiful looking game called Falling Frontier, a real-time space strategy, at the start here. But actually there's more to discuss, because as I say, Hooded Horse, the publishing studios, are very busy, and they seem to have something really fixating them on space, and I'm pleased to see it. In this video, we're going to talk about this experience, Terra Invicta. As I've said, Terra Invicta comes out of Hooded Horse. Here it is on Steam, targeted release Q2 of next year. They are, of course, the publishers of Old World as well, so we've seen their strategy foray already, and I have to say, from what we've seen so far, so good. Now let's talk about Terra Invicta. Here it is, and essentially, in a nutshell, the TLDR is, I would describe this as a space game for people that aren't fully sold on space games. Why? Because it incorporates Earth's nations and Earth's system very heavily into the game. You will have seen it already, and you'll see some more gameplay as we move on. I should also note that as we move through this video, I'll be talking a little bit more specifically about some of the things in the gameplay, rather than just having it playing in the background for you to enjoy. Anyway, in Terra Invicta, let me sell it to you the way it's sold, because I think it's put very well. From the creators of Long War, an alien invasion has fractured humanity into 7 ideological playable factions, by the way. Each one, of course, with its unique vision for what the future ought to look like. In Terra Invicta, we lead our chosen faction to take control of Earth's many nations, and then expand across the solar system, battling enemy fleets as we go. As you can see, Terra Invicta combines Earth's geopolitics with space. It builds space around Earth, in my opinion, and indeed, this is just my opinion, and it's very early days so far. Let's talk a little bit more specifically then about those playable factions, shall we? So, in Terra Invicta, an extraterrestrial probe is detected approaching Earth. Yikes. And, unknown to humanity, an alien force has arrived in the far reaches of our solar system. And they've started to mine a dwarf planet and prepare to invade us. So, we're left in a position where we have to stand up, take the reins, unite Earth, hopefully, for the alien arrival, and use our political, military, and scientific leaders, and you'll see them as characters throughout this gameplay, to develop our own ideology and our own response. The factions. A lot of their names won't mean a lot to you, but I'll show them on screen now. Basically, you can see they're divided by what they want to do. The servants, for example, worship aliens, whereas the Academy hopes that the alien arrival heralds the opportunity to form an interstellar alliance. Either way, these different factions and groups have different political motivations and ideologies behind them, hopefully making it so that each playthrough is very different. And if Pavonis Interactive, the developer of this game, and of course Hooded Horse, the publisher, can do a good job at making the factions really distinct and have a really unique identity, I think it's going to help Terra Invicta really come forward into a more playable experience. Why? Well, a lot of the time with some space strategy games, from what I've heard from other people and my own experience, it can be hard to make them feel relatable when you're looking at something that you just don't recognize or understand. And so bringing those factions, that human element into the game, may be one of its saving graces that help lift it up to the next level. Speaking of lifting up to the next level, we should probably talk about the gameplay itself and actually how this game works. So, as I've mentioned earlier, you would like to gain command over all of Earth's nations. And as you can see here, and you've seen already, there's a wide variety of technologies and research and weapons for you to manage. Up the top of your screen, you'll of course also see yields that strategy gamers know and love. For everything from the research that's powering our technologies, to our industry, our energy, and our currency, it's all up there in slightly different shapes and forms. And I'll also point out in the top right, you'll notice the year is 2029. And there is also a game speed toggle up there as well. Something to note. Anyway, we're trying to gain command over Earth's nations and take humanity's first steps into conquering, colonizing, or heck, maybe even befriending our solar system. There are over 300 asteroids, moons, and planets in constant motion, creating an ever-changing strategic map. Back on Earth, though, we begin a game normally as the head of an organization, competing, as I said, with those other factions for control. Geopolitics is our game, and this, by the sounds, feels like a huge geopolitical simulator. So not only are you just building spaceships and flying out and fighting people, but it's the politics, and the politics of Earth, crucially, that you're going to want to be able to control. Again, a space game for people looking to keep their feet somewhat grounded on Earth, right? I feel it again and again and again. Back on Earth and within that geopolitical sphere, as factions work through a council of politicians, scientists, and operatives, those figures that you've seen throughout. You can see my councillor down the bottom right, for example, as one. These people, these characters, have abilities that can enhance your ability in the game to build up intelligence and other corporations, bringing them on side and building that great Earth diplomacy. Of course, there's a massive global research system as well in Terra Invicta that builds opportunities not just for you to focus inward and build your own research, but actually to cooperate with others around the Earth from other factions, other discoveries made in space, and ultimately, hopefully, colonize the solar system. More on those factions, actually. There are 6 of them, and as I've said already, sometimes you might want to work with them, like in the research. Or, for example, as alien activity grows on Earth, you might not have a choice. You might have to just pull over your Soviet tank, march over to England, and give them a jolly good bollocking. Because in Terra Invicta, sometimes cooperation is the best when alien fleets are detected. I hope that so far you've been able to see the picture that I'm trying to paint. Again, this is just my experience, and I would encourage you to go and have a look at this gameplay and these features and trailers and the Steam listing and take a look at it yourself. But for me, just to reiterate, this is a space game for people who are a little less hesitant to jump fully into space. And of course, in Terra Invicta, you cannot remain on Earth alone. You will eventually build space launch facilities, constructible bases on planets and moons as well. And that's important. You are not just limited to Earth. Of course, the idea here is that you expand in whatever way you choose. The facilities themselves look fairly interesting and actually quite a bit of detail to them, from the boosters and rockets and ships that get you there to the construction and research facilities themselves. And then, of course, finally, it wouldn't be fair for me here, jeepers, I'm running out of time, to not mention combat. Of course, tactical combat in this game is built around a, quote, realistic simulation of Newtonian physics. Love it. Where momentum and maneuverability in 3D space is just as important as the firepower your ships carry. I like that they make a specific point to mention that as well. Sure, it could just be marketing, could just be sales, but maneuverability is so important in combat, and a lot of strategy games fail to realize that. Particularly, I'm thinking, no offense, Civ, but I'm thinking of Civ in particular. I know it's not a space game, but, you know, aside from maybe some terrain differences in a river, there's really not a lot to movement in that game, and many others like it. So hopefully Terra Invicta can build on that. And of course, like all of the other games that I've covered so far from Hooded Horse, Terra Invicta is built with modding support in mind, and much of the game's accessible to modders without a coding background. So hopefully, just like we've been able to do in Humankind, if Terra Invicta proves to be a successful strategy game, then the solar system setting and geopolitics that it offers will hopefully provide modders an incredible vision. Really, the solar system is your oyster in Terra Invicta. Thank you very much for watching. If you haven't seen my Fallen Frontier video, I'd recommend you check that out too. And I will see you in the next one, and in 2022, when all of these exciting strategy games finally hit the shelves, the digital shelves. As I said at the start, we don't have a release date for this one, but it is targeted for the second quarter of next year, or this year, depending on when you're watching. It's a new year after all. I'll see you then.